I've been having really bad dreams for the past couple of weeks. In order to understand how bad these dreams were, I'll give you the first one from a couple weeks ago. It started with me being on the inside of a house. The only thing that I knew immediately was that this wasn't my house. However, I did know that I had broken into the house on purpose. I could feel this overwhelming urge to find whoever was sleeping in the house. I was on the bottom floor of a 2-story house and just started to climb to the second floor using the front steps. I made sure to make no sound as I slowly climbed the stairs, making a point to take long looks at the photos on the wall. They were in various combinations of 3 different people. 1 mother and 2 small children. 1 picture of just the daughter. 1 of the daughter and son. A third of all 3 of them posing in some sort of photo at a park. Whoever the people who lived in this house were, the dad definitely wasn't in the picture. I froze for a second as the top stair creaked. No sound of anyone waking up suddenly. That was good. I knew that she was in the room on the right. She had just been able to afford a place where the kids could have their own rooms. The daughter was on the left, and the son had the bedroom downstairs. I opened the door on the right. I could hear her lightly snoring. Her leg is sticking out of the blanket, and I could see her pajama shorts reaching the edge of her butt cheek. I felt a smile as I tiptoed to the bed and prepared to climb on top of her. As my knee impacted the bed, her eyes opened just a little. She was a lighter sleeper than I thought. She saw me, and a look of horror spread across her face. That's when I woke up. Before you say anything, yes, I know how fucked up that dream sounds. The dream was super surreal in the sense that, like, I was just feeling and watching something happen. I didn't have any control of what was going on. It was almost like being inside someone else's head and being able to feel what they feel and see what they see. Whoever I was supposed to be in the dream, they were one fucked up individual. I didn't think much of it when it happened the first time. Who hasn't had a screwed up dream? It happened again 2 nights later. It wasn't the exact same dream. I was the same person, but the house and the people were different. A different young woman in a different house with 2 roommates instead of kids. They looked to be college age, and most of the photos showed the 3 at various parties at various levels of inebriation. And just like last time, I woke up just as my victim looked at me in terror. This second dream freaked me out. I was even more freaked out when I opened my news app to find the college-age girl staring at me from the front of my news app. Apparently, the police were connecting her murder last night to the murder of a young mother 2 days ago. That was when I truly lost my mind. Had I really just seen the murder of 2 real women in my dreams? What the hell was happening? How was it happening? A little bit of history. I have an aunt with schizophrenia. My mother is bipolar. My sister, while not directly diagnosed with a specific condition, started taking Abilify when she started hearing voices and television static. Being a woman in my family comes with a mental health risk. You can understand why my second thought about seeing the face from my dream was my mental health. It was probably more likely that I was hallucinating something rather than suddenly gaining the ability to see real murders in my dreams. I'm a college student, And I don't have the money to spend to see a psychologist, so I went to BetterHelp. Still costs money, but it's much cheaper than seeing an actual psychologist, and much easier to schedule than trying to see the counseling services at my school. So I signed up for the service and started talking to Sharon. I told her about my dreams and seeing the faces from my dreams as murder victims. Sharon, bless her heart, started talking to me about how people don't really see faces in their dreams. In fact, we don't really see much detail about people at all in our dreams, and the detail is mostly filled in right after we wake up. Seeing the photo of a murder victim just after waking up from a dream about murdering someone just filled in the face of who I thought I saw in my dream. It was a great explanation. It filled in every hole of the events perfectly. I was freaking out about murdering someone in my dream and just put the face of a real murder victim onto my dream murder victim. I could take solace in the fact that my mind was perfectly normal, doing perfectly normal things, and I wasn't suddenly having hallucinations at the ripe age of 26. I really wish Sharon had been right. I had just begun to believe her and started to think that I was okay and not about to have a complete mental breakdown when I had another dream. It had been a whole 2 weeks since the last one, and I thought I had rid of them. This one went similarly to the last two. I had broken into a house and attacked a young woman while she was sleeping. I woke up screaming and covered in sweat as she opened her eyes, and I saw the look of terror on her face. The dreams were supposed to have stopped. I had an explanation for them, and they shouldn't be able to frighten me any longer. I couldn't resist the temptation and looked at my news app. This time, there was no local news about a murdered young woman. Not quite believing it, I expanded my search to any news on any murders in the entire state. After 45 minutes and nothing even remotely close to my dream, I sighed in relief. While I was convinced that I hadn't seen someone's actual murder, it still screwed with my anxiety, so I decided to try to get in touch with Sharon again. Her explanations and reassurances that I wasn't a bad person worked last time, and I hoped that they would work this time. When I opened the app up again, it said that I had been assigned to a different counselor. They sent an apology message describing that Sharon had left the company and that I would be getting a new counselor if I needed one. While annoyed, I knew I needed to talk to someone about the dreams, so I found another counselor. Melissa V's profile showed a chipper-looking black-haired lady with a Betty Page haircut. She seemed nice enough from the picture, and I sent a message describing the previous dreams and the most current one. The app said that Melissa had read it, but she hadn't responded yet. After about 15 minutes, I messaged her again. "Are you there? I'm really having trouble here and I need someone to talk to. The last counselor said that people can have creepy dreams like this all the time, but a second opinion would be nice." I typed into the app. It took another 5 minutes for her to answer. "I'm sorry for the slow response. The internet is shoddy where I'm at. Sharon was correct about how you put faces to people in your dreams after the dream is over. She's very much qualified to talk about that type of stuff, so you should trust her," Melissa replied. The second opinion, confirming that I had nothing to be afraid of, was nice to hear. However, Melissa sent another message just after this one. "But on this occasion, she's wrong. You need to worry about your dreams." What the hell was this woman talking about? I got so mad when she said this that I deleted the app off my phone. I tried to go about my day like I normally would, heading to my classes and focusing on biology and physics, but I couldn't get what Melissa said out of my head. You need to worry about your dreams. Another couple weeks passed without any more dreams. I hadn't quite let my guard down, but I was ready to believe that the dreams were gone for good this time. I'm glad that they didn't. It was the last day of both my summer classes, and I was so exhausted after 2 science finals in a row that I just collapsed onto my bed after getting home. The dream started earlier than usual. This time I was outside of the townhouse and I was picking the lock of a front door. It was dark, but I somehow knew it wasn't as late as it usually was. The bitch had fallen asleep early and I was worried she would be awake at the usual time that I visited. I was worried about being spotted and needed to hurry up on picking the lock. I got a bit lucky and caught the tumblers at just the right places to unlock the door. The townhouse was small, and I knew that she lived alone. Her room was upstairs and just to the left of the bathroom. I opened the door to the room and saw her prone form laying on top of the covers. She hadn't even bothered to change into her pajamas. Just as I took the first step into her room, I heard a loud ringing sound. I swear I'd put my ringer on silent when I got home. I pushed the button on the side of the phone and looked at the notification from the BetterHelp app on the front of the screen. "Wake up," sent from Melissa V. I turned around to see a man wearing black gloves standing in my doorway. He looked just as surprised as I did. I screamed and jumped from the bed. The man with the black gloves ran from my doorway and back down the stairs. I picked up my phone and dialed 911 as quickly as I could, screaming at the operator about someone being in my house and sending police officers. That was when I heard the screech of a newly formed skid mark on the road just outside my complex. I'm not afraid to admit I started crying after that, as I just repeated my address to them and told them to send the cops over and over and over again. The cops announced themselves at my front door about 5 minutes later, and I finally went downstairs. After asking if I was unharmed and me telling them that I was, they informed me of what happened. Apparently, the guy who had broken in my house had run off after I started screaming, probably because the townhouses were so close together that he was afraid that the neighbors had heard me. He hadn't been watching the road when he ran across it, and someone ran into him doing 40. Probably the only instance in recorded history where distracted driving actually saved someone's life. He didn't die. The bad ones never do. But he did have shattered legs and a couple of broken ribs. That amount of suffering isn't enough for the asshole. His name is Walter. After the cops talked to him in the hospital, they got a warrant to test his DNA, and they matched him to 5 murder victims over the past couple months. I don't know how, but the Melissa had somehow known that Walter was in my apartment and woke me up enough to yell for help and frighten him off. After the cops had left, I looked at my phone again, wanting to ask Melissa how she had done what she'd done, but there was no message from the BetterHelp app. The app wasn't even on my phone. I deleted it weeks ago. I wrote an email to their customer service. I got an answer back from them the same day. "Carol, thank you for contacting us. As you requested a couple of weeks ago, we canceled any charges to you after your first counselor left the company. We offered to find a new counselor for you, however, you never contacted us and we assumed that you no longer needed our services. To repeat, all charges have been reversed to your bank account and you should have seen the debit to your account by now. Thank you for contacting BetterHelp customer service. Thomas. P.S. As for your new counselor, there has never been a counselor named Melissa V who has worked for BetterHelp." I thought I should post this story because of what happened a couple days ago. I testified at Walter's trial to make sure that monster went to jail. They honestly didn't need me since they had mountains of evidence. Despite the fact that he had been wearing gloves, Walter had not been careful about leaving evidence. There was hair and skin and bodily fluid. They didn't need my 10 minutes of testimony to convict him. I'm glad I went though, because I finally found out who the other women were he had murdered. Tina Bloomberg, a single mother of 2 children. Rachel Love, a student at the local community college. Iris Young, a 17-year-old high school student. Kate Rivers, a musician in a local band. And Melissa Valdez, a chipper-looking psychology student with black hair and a Betty Page haircut. Cracks of light bled in from various places as the makeshift blindfold struggled to fulfill its duty. While I could barely see through it, it was still enough to dampen my vision and give me enough pause as to not go wandering around on my own, even if I knew my own house like the back of my hand. 2 small hands perched on each of my shoulders, slightly pushing me forward silently. Feeling the pressure lift from my shoulder, I felt her fingers untying the blindfold as light poured into my now sensitive eyes. "Surprise!" came the roar from the crowd of family and friends gathered to host my party. I raised my hands to shield my eyes from the luminous assault of the light as they adjusted. "Come on, I'm 30 years old. Was that really necessary?" I grumbled, though still donned a satisfying grin on my face. A voice rang behind me. "Still a 30-year-old child, Clyde. I can tell you're smirking even without seeing your face. Admit it. You love being the center of attention." Aya walked up to me, placing a soft kiss on my cheek, her brown eyes sparkling with mischief as she sauntered over and joined the rest of the small crowd of about 3 people. "Oh, well, I can't lie there, babe. You know me too well," I said while chuckle. It was my 30th birthday. Aya got the idea to get a few friends and family I had left in town to throw me a birthday party. Of course, I merely wanted to come home from work, throw a few back, and enjoy my day. A change of pace isn't a bad thing, though, I guess. The rest of the night came and went. I opened the various gifts gotten from me, ranging from a new beer stein to a new guitar that I had my eye on for quite some time. To think they all pitched in and got me that after the unfortunate accident broke my last one. Rather, a crazy homeless person grabbed it and decided to exact vengeance upon it for some bizarre reason. Who knows? Mentally ill people do weird things. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I wasn't hurt, though I was pissed to no end and gave the guy a few good punches before the cops came and ran him off. I sat on the couch, resting, testing out the new beer stein my brother had gotten me when Aya came up and sat down next to me, cuddling close. I ran my fingers through her luxurious black hair and leaned against her. That was when I finally noticed something gold in the corner of my eye sitting on the table next to me. It was a golden box. Huh, where'd this come from? I don't remember unwrapping this. Oh, that's from my grandmother. When I told her that you liked music, she thought you might enjoy it. Said it might help you relax and find some inspiration. Didn't your grandmother hate me? I'm kind of skeptical of her getting me something that fancy looking. What is it, a music box? Yep, Aya responded cheerfully. For the record, she hates your guts. I told her, though, that if she didn't at least attempt to be nice to you, I'd cut her off with the rest of the family and convince them to put her in a home. Ouch, that's cold, even for you. Yeah, well, if I want to get engaged to a white guy, that's my business, not hers. I pulled her towards me with a reassuring hug. I met Aya in college. We dated for years before I popped the question. She agreed, and when I met the rest of her family, well, they weren't too pleased, to say the least. They wanted her to find a nice Asian man and settle down as a housewife. Aya had other plans and wanted to pursue her career in law. She was the logical one and I was the more creative one, writing stories and playing music. I never got too far in college and ended up deciding it wasn't for me and I got a bachelor's. Regardless, I made ends meet. My book sales earned enough to be profitable and I made quite a bit as well, so we weren't hurting for money. Eventually, I relinquished my grip on her and turned my attention to the golden box that was resting on the table. Sorry, it's not wrapped. We ran out of paper, Aya said a bit sheepishly. Oh no, it's fine. This thing is big though, for a music box. Examining the golden box closely, it looked like any other music box except twice, maybe even 3 times the size of a normal one. Covering the entire box was a ornate marking with a lock on the middle of it. I examined it carefully as I spoke. I'm surprised she got me anything like this. It looks way too expensive. Still though, I can't fathom why it'd be a music box of all things. You've told her the kind of music I listen to and play. Aya snickered. I have. She probably thinks you're not cultured enough and got it for you. I can't imagine she spent very much on it, but you know how Grandma can be. It's probably just some broken junk she found and bought to get me off her back for being mean to you. I nodded and opened the lid. In the center was a figure of a woman in a white tutu in a typical ballet pose atop a golden circular pedestal I can only imagine represented a stage. Her arms outstretched as if asking her partner for an embrace. Long white hair flowed down her back and looked eerily real. The detail was so immaculate you could even notice the blissful smile that she wore, though something about it also seemed out of place. Not only were her eyes red, her partner in dance was completely deformed and seemed to be crumbling, falling apart. Though it was distorted, when examined closely, one could see that a look of pure terror seemed to embody the man's face. I then wound it up and let the music box spin. It produced no sound and instead just the figures whirl around in a circle. Oh wow, Aya finally said, clearly annoyed. This is too much. I'll talk to her about it tomorrow. I can't believe she got you a junked music box. I shook my head quietly a few times, still inspecting the mechanism and the figurines. As I was looking at the dancing woman, one of her eyes moved and met my gaze, causing me to yelp in surprise and throw the box down on the ground, the lid slamming shut as it rolled. Holy shit! That thing just looked at me! Aya burst into laughter. I think you need to lay off the beer, Clyde. You've had a bit too much if you're starting to see things. She then got up and picked up the box, setting it on the table. I'll take this back to the store. We bought it from the morning. Yeah, I think I'm going to hit the sack. It's been a long day. I got up and stretched, walking up the stairs to our room. Upon hitting the mattress, I was out like a light. That night, I woke up to the faint yet unmistakable tinkling of the music box. Aya had retired sometime in the night and had her arm over me as she did every night. I carefully slipped out from her arm as to not wake her and made my way down to the den. There it rested on the table, playing its song as the 2 dancers on the center disc rotated around each other. The melody it played seemed so familiar, eerily so, as if I had heard it at some point in time but couldn't place it. It was like a burst of nostalgia or deja vu, though you can't quite pinpoint exactly when or where it was you experienced it. Thought it was broken, I mumbled to myself. I shut the lid and went back upstairs. After doing my business in the bathroom, I stealthily slid back under Aya's arm and fell fast asleep. That was the first night the dream began. I distinctly remember it. My feet were clearly on some form of ground, but all I saw around me was darkness. The void stretched on infinitely and sought to consume all light that dare enter it. That was when I saw her off in the distance. A brilliant radiance cut through the abyss before me and instinctively beckoned me closer. My feet began walking before I realized it, and I found myself before the very same ballet dancer that stood poised in the music box. Her long white hair flowed elegantly behind her graceful motions as she extended her arms towards me in the same longing embrace. Her crimson eyes burned with a fiery passion as she gazed at me with a solemn, lonely expression. It was then the beams of light from the sun's rays woke me up. As the morning came, I found myself in an unusually good mood, probably still a happy high from the drinking and partying last night. I took my shower and made my way downstairs to the smell of some bacon and eggs cooking. "Morning, sleepyhead. Where'd you come up with the creepy song?" It was then I noticed myself whistling the same tune the music box was playing without even realizing it. I ceased the whistling and sauntered over, giving Aya a morning hug. "Morning, sunshine. No classes today?" "It's the song from the music box, I guess. I thought it was broken. Did you fix it last night?" Aya shook her head as she flipped the bacon and scooped some Overwell eggs onto a plate. "Wasn't me. Classes were canceled today. Professor was sick." "Are you sure you didn't just dream it all up? That sounds too creepy, even for an antique music box." I chuckled and walked over to the music box, picking it up and opening it. Winding it up, the eerie melody resonated through the room as the disc with the dancer rotated. Wait, dancer? That was when I noticed it. Hey, didn't this have two dancers on it? A man and a woman? Aya left the bacon to sizzle for a bit longer as she came over to inspect it, her face cringing and nose crinkling at the sound emanating from the box. "That's funny. Maybe we're both dreaming," she said as she gave me a punch on the arm before returning to slide the bacon onto our plates. "Har har, very funny, love," I said as I took my place at the table after setting the box down on the end table. "Well, since it's working now, you still want me to take it back?" I played around with the eggs on my plate a bit, forking them as I pondered. My brain kept yelling, "Yes, take the damn thing back." For some reason, I found the words difficult to say. I couldn't explain why. Finally, I managed to stumble out a response. "Yeah, go ahead and take it back. Something about it weirds me out. I'm hoping your grandmother didn't curse it or something." Aya couldn't help but giggle, letting out one of her cute little snorts when she found something extremely funny. "Come on, big bad Clyde, scared of a little music box? Besides, I don't think my grandmother would know how to curse something like that. She wasn't exactly the faithful kind, you know? I get what you mean, though. It is creepy. I'll take it back today and we'll use the money for something useful." "Alright, sounds like a plan. I'll stay here and work on some music, I guess." After breakfast, she picked up the box and headed out. I found myself alone in the house and wandered to the basement, plugging the new guitar I received into the amp. I plucked a few of the strings and made sure it was in tune before I started practicing and plucking different strings to compose something. No matter what I tried, my brain seemed turned off. I kept finding myself plucking the strings and trying to recreate the melody from the music box, despite how it thoroughly creeped me out. Eventually, I gave up and went to grab a beer, which felt pleasant against the blisters that were starting to form on my fingers from the hours of plucking. Later in the evening, I came back with the box, setting it back on the table next to me as I nursed my beer. I raised an eyebrow inquisitively at her. What do you mean? It's the weirdest thing. I went to where we bought it, some antique store over on 22nd, and the lot was vacant. Was like there was no one ever there. I don't get it. Think they left in a hurry? Maybe they were selling illegal goods or something. No, there wasn't a trace. The building itself was so dusty and looked like it had been abandoned for years. Even the doors were boarded up with the notice of condemnation. You're right. That is weird. Yeah, well, it gets worse. Grandma doesn't even remember buying the thing, even though I was there with her. Keeps claiming she gave you an envelope of money instead. That one puzzled me as I scratched my head. Well, she's old. Maybe she's senile too? Aya scowled at me. I don't mind you poking at my grandmother at times, but you and I both know she is not senile. Right, sorry. I forgot that's a sore spot for you. She shook her head as she gave me a hug, plopping down next to me. It's alright. I shouldn't have snapped at you like that. So, what do we do with the haunted box? Not sure. I guess we could just keep it for now. Maybe pawn it if we need cash later or something. It looks pretty expensive. Good idea. I don't think it'd bring that much though, really. It looks pretty fake to me. Well, you know, one man's trash, I said as I threw an arm around her. Besides, I still have that damn tune stuck in my head. Maybe if I hear it enough, I'll get sick of it. No? Not getting attached to something besides me, are you? She teased as she nuzzled into my shoulder. Maybe if you're especially good, I can find a tutu for me to wear. I laughed loud, and a bit of beer slipped out as I struggled to keep from spitting it across the room. I wiped my mouth off, shaking my head. Hush you. You know you're the only one for me. We stayed up talking and watching TV before we finally decided to go to bed. Night 2 was the same dream, but I didn't wake up this time. As the white-haired woman approached me in the void this time, I found myself compelled to return her embrace. The moment I did, the familiar chime started to echo through the house as my eyes drowsily opened. Damn thing is broken. Hell. It's working without winding or not fully unwinding one. I mumbled under my breath. Aya was still sleeping. However, she was sleeping on her side and facing away from me. I pulled myself out of bed and went down to the den. Instead of closing the lid immediately, I found myself sitting on the couch and just watching it for a few moments. Before I knew it, I had lifted the box and was watching the ballerina on the plate spin as my index finger gingerly reached out and stroked the hair running down her back. It felt real, eerily real, and enough to snap me back to reality as I closed the lid. God, I'm losing it, I said as I got up and washed my face off. After that, I went back to bed. The morning sun came with a resounding, "Clyde, what the fuck?" as the covers were tore off me. I rolled over and out of bed as I staggered around wiping my eyes. What'd I do? What'd you do? I'm going to have to wash these. God, I hope this doesn't ruin the sheets. That was when I realized it. I hadn't noticed it before, but my briefs were wet. I hope it was worth it. That must have been one hell of a dream you were having. Aya shot me a look of disgust as she pulled the sheets off. Great. Even the bed is stained. Get some water and start scrubbing. You caused this. You're cleaning it up. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't clean the bedding, Clyde. She held out her hand. Here. Give me those. I'll wash those as well. I sighed, changing my briefs and giving her the soiled pair. She then wrapped them up in the other blankets and stormed off. I got a bucket of warm soapy water and set to clean the mattress. After what seemed like an eternity, I finally cleaned it and dried it with a hairdryer. I then made my way down to the kitchen and started making some breakfast as an apology. Aya finally came back from the laundromat as I finished some waffles and trudged up the stairs, placing the sheets and quilt back on the bed. She then came down the stairs, still looking pissed. Hey, I started sheepishly. I made you some breakfast. I'm sorry for, well, you know. She sighed and slumped down in a chair at the table. Well, that was the most embarrassing trip to the laundromat I ever had. What'd you do, Clyde? I slid the plate of eggs and waffles over to her. I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, I got up last night because the stupid music box was going off again, and she cut me off. Don't blame the music box. Honestly, the whole haunted thing was funny at first, but now it's just getting annoying. Okay, I'm sorry. I screwed up. I cleaned the mattress like you asked. You've known me for how long? This has never happened before. She let out a sigh. 4 years. I'm sorry. Baby, I didn't mean to snap at you. I've just been feeling pretty stressed lately. The professor is out sick again, and well, it's the class I'm not doing so well in. At this point, my masters might be in danger. I sat next to her and wrapped an arm around her. It's alright. I didn't know you were having any problems in class. Why didn't you tell me? Well, with the wedding and everything, I didn't want you worrying over me, she said, poking at the eggs with her fork. Hey, we tackle things together, okay? Don't bottle things up. It's not good for you. Yeah, you're right. Besides, I'm just irritated that because I had the weirdest dream last night. Wait, you too? What'd you dream about? I hate even remembering it. It's just stupid, really. For some reason, I dreamt of you and that stupid ballerina from the box, and, well, you were doing more than just dancing. When I woke up and saw that, I kind of lost it. That's crazy. When I first went to sleep, and well, yesterday as well, I had a dream of that stupid broad getting a bit too friendly with me, like she was calling me. After I woke up last night and turned the stupid box off again, I don't remember what I dreamt about after that. I just kind of passed out. I don't like that box. Forget the plan. Let's get rid of it. I agree. As Aya finished her eggs, I went and got the box. I took it outside to the dumpster, and I started to drop it when I felt a familiar sensation. It felt like something was embracing me from behind. My hand clenched subconsciously on the box for a few moments before I finally managed to come back to my senses, hurling the box into the dumpster and hearing the satisfying clang and crunch as it hit the sides and fell to the bottom. I walked back in and nodded at Aya, who was looking at me with a worried smile. Clyde 1, box 0. I chucked it into the dumpster pretty good. I imagine it's finally broken now. She came rushing over and wrapped her arms around me, giving me a much welcomed kiss, chuckling all the while. Thanks, Clyde. I'm sorry. Hey, no need. These things happen. You know, cursed music boxes and failed exams, just another day of life. She giggled, giving me another kiss. We spent the rest of the day watching Netflix and relaxing before going to bed. The same familiar dream came to me before I finally felt someone shaking me. Clyde, wake up. I groggily opened my eyes, letting a loud yawn. What? I didn't do it again, did I? No. You did throw it out, right? Yeah. Did you hear it? Didn't you hear the clanging from in the house? I did. But listen. I rubbed my eyes again and listened when I heard it. The familiar sound of the music box playing. But this time right next to me, yet filling the entire house at the same time. What in the hell? I'm scared, Clyde. Where did you throw it? The dumpster out back. Go get it. I'll take it to a friend tomorrow. A friend? Yes, a friend. He's a priest. Just go get it. Got it. I threw on my clothes and started to head down the stairs when I stopped dead in my tracks. Hey, I shouted. My eyes locked to the golden box sitting on the center of the table, open and playing. The ballerina twirling, the red eyes glowing in the darkness. Aya came down the stairs, gripping the handrail tightly. We've both seen enough scary movies to know what happens on stairs in the darkness. I, found it. She walked over to it and slammed the lid shut, though the music continued to play. She opened the lid and then slammed it shut a few more times. Why won't this thing stop? Stop it! She shouted as she continued repeatedly slamming the lid. I came up from behind and wrapped my arms around her, pulling her away. It's fine, Aya. Let's just stay awake tomorrow and you can take it to your priest friend tomorrow. She broke down sobbing as we cuddled on the couch. Hours passed before the music finally stopped tormenting us with the cryptic melody. Finally, dawn broke and the rays crept through the cracks of the blinds. I nudged Aya awake. Sleep well? She just clung to me even tighter and began to sob quietly. Hey, it'll be okay. Your priest friend will figure this shit out. Yeah, you're right, she mumbled, wiping the tears from her eyes. While we fixed breakfast, nothing odd seemed to happen. We ate, and Aya collected the box before heading out. As she headed out the door with it, a strange feeling came over me, making my chest hurt. The same kind of pain you get when you're lonely after a breakup. Part of me wanted to reach out and stop her from walking out the door, but I managed to restrain myself. I wasn't about to let this thing, whatever it was, play me like that. As the day passed, I kept finding myself waging war on my thoughts. At times my mind would blank out and I would find myself humming or whistling the tune from the music box. Again, I wasn't about to let this thing beat me. I'm sure Aya's friend would figure it out. All I could do now was hold strong. Finally, Aya came back wearing a triumphant smile. He purified it, she said. Think we should get rid of it to be safe? She shook her head. I'm sure he exorcised whatever was lingering around it. I've known him for a very long time. He's solved a lot of our family's less than normal problems. Wait, you've dealt with things like this before? Well, not entirely this, but it's not uncommon either. My mother and father used to tell me stories of all kinds of things. They said that I was lucky that a lot of bad karma didn't gather around me. Well, you could have mentioned that earlier. You mean before this happened? You probably would have thought I was crazy, Clyde. I snickered. Probably then, but definitely not now. If you say it's safe, then alright, we'll keep it. I still don't like it, though. She seemed giddy as she plopped down next to me, cozying up next to me. It'll be fine. Besides, you know I love you, Clyde. I've always loved you since I first saw you. I smiled before leaning down and kissing her. The next few days were relatively peaceful. The professor was no longer sick and Aya went back to her classes. Her grades were climbing and everything was going well. I mulled around the house, composing my music and working on my next novel. It was about a week when the dream started back up, though thankfully no more incidences. I just chalked it up to an overactive imagination and decided that I'd make it the topic of my next novel. I've never tried a horror story before, but I figured I'd give it a go. As I wrote, I again found myself humming the music box melody, though it was no longer playing of a night. It was on a Monday night that I went to sleep. Aya was laying in bed next to me as usual. My phone rang and I answered it at 3:33. Over the handset, I heard static at first, followed by the melody of the music box. It played for roughly a minute, and then the phone clicked. Again, I didn't think anything of it and went back to sleep. After all, I'd gotten used to the nightmares. I was clearly dreaming, so instead of worrying, I merely rolled over and went back to sleep in my dream. It wasn't long before I felt a pressure sitting on my chest. Upon opening my eyes, I saw a woman sitting on top of my chest. Her red eyes gazed into mine, as her long white hair seemed to wave behind her, as if caught in a perpetual gentle breeze. I opened my mouth to speak as she placed a slender hand over it, silencing me. Despite feeling as if I could easily overpower the diminutive dancer, I found myself unable to move. For the first time, I heard her voice. "Shh. It's time to listen." She spoke. Her melodious voice seemed hypnotic as I found myself unable to move. "It took me a long time to separate you two. Many fall apart on the first day, but she was stubborn. Karma, she called it. That woman possessed quite the spiritual capability." She crossed her arms in front of her as she sat on top of me, letting out an annoyed sigh. "I thought I had her ready to leave after showing her what we had done. Most women despise infidelity. She didn't consider it so because of the coercion." She then licked her lips before continuing. "So I had to take things a little further. It was hard on me, you know. That took a lot of energy. But she gave back far, far more than it took." She then leaned down, cupping my face in her hands as she continued her monologue, forcing me to listen. "I'm sure you think you're dreaming right now, don't you, Clyde? You aren't. I've loved you since I first saw you. That woman, she couldn't love you like I can. I'll show you that it's true. Your heart will ache just like mine. The sorrow, the loneliness bring you to me, and we'll be together. You'll see." She leaned down and pressed her lips against mine. I wanted to recoil in disgust, but found myself unable to move. As she released me, she vanished. The clock read 5:23 a.m. when I received the call. They found Aya's remains in a ditch. They were unsure how she died, but they said it looked like the life was drained out of her. All that was left of her was a rotting, withering corpse that looked like a mummy. It's been a month now since Aya died. Her family no longer speaks to me, and every night I deal with that infernal box opening. Every night I go to sleep, I always wake to a loving embrace that seems to vanish when I come to. Other nights I see her sitting next to my bed, smiling at me and watching me sleep. Since then, I have smashed the box, burnt it, thrown it in a river. Hell, I even gave it to the trash carrier directly and watched him smash it with the hydraulic press in the truck. It doesn't matter. It always back in the same spot when I walk through the door, sitting on the table, mocking me. The heartache is getting hard to deal with, admittedly. I hate her, that thing, whatever she is, it is. I hate her for taking my eye away from me. Not only that, she even had the gall to try to masquerade as her. I can't help but thinking she's right, though. Aya was always out of my league. A woman with a master's degree in law marrying a failing author and music composer? She would have gotten sick of taking care of me eventually. Those thoughts swirl around in my head constantly. Maybe I should stay with her. She's always there in the music box, right down the stairs.